Hi, it's Chris with the 10-Minute Writer. My first video was on the promise of the first chapter because you want to make sure you are making the right promise to your reader and then delivering on that promise. And once you're confident that you are starting the right place with a good promise made, then you want to make sure that you're still getting off to a fast start. That doesn't mean that you have to have a huge action scene. There was a editorial assistant who had a blog a while back, and they wrote a post on this that says, your goal as an author is to quickly introduce a character and a problem. Dropping into the middle of a sword fight usually isn't the best way to do this. When you have action without context, there's nothing at stake and the reader won't engage with it. The goal is to show the reader something about the character and to engage the reader in what is going to happen next. So it gets back to a character with a problem, a reason for it, some high stakes, and you want to have that on the page as quickly as possible, not a character who is sort of passively observing an ordinary day, but a character who is dealing with something. Nathan Bransford is a former agent and an author himself, and he talks about you want to introduce questions in the opening of your novel, but not confusion about what's happening. So he said in a first page critique, often when trying to be mysterious, authors just end up being vague. It's really hard to invest in a mystery when we don't have enough information to understand what's happening entirely. Instead, it's often better to let the reader into the mystery in order to build anticipation. Orient the reader around whether a character will succeed or fail. So we don't want to watch a character who's in the middle of a fight or desperately running from something or wondering how they're going to overcome their curse if we don't know what's going on, who this character is, what they're running from or what their curse is. We need to know what's happening and why in order to know the stakes. So in writing, there's a lot of guidelines. I wouldn't say there's a whole lot of rules because you can always find exceptions that work. But in general, you want to start in the action at a moment of change. Then work in the backstory. So if you look back at your writing and see that your first couple of chapters were a lot of explanation of the past and who the character is and what their general situation is, that might be material that you need to cut. Start where something is changing and work in the backstory in bits and pieces. Start with a scene so you have someone on the page moving, talking, have action and dialogue. You have something going on, not just their thoughts in general. And use description and summary when they are needed to understand where this character is and what's happening. So you can definitely include them, but try not to stop the action for a lot of explanation. Just drop in the information when we need it. So one option is to start in the middle of a fight or other conflict. Now, that doesn't have to be a big action scene. Remember, we just said that sometimes those don't work if you don't know enough about the characters and what's going on and what the fight is about. But you can write some kind of conflict that also introduces the characters, lets you understand their personality, and sets the scene for what's going to happen next. So Charming the Billionaire Cowboy, it's not a thriller action book. It's a sweet romance. It's really about two people falling in love. But I opened the book with the female lead lost driving down this country road. So she already has a bit of a problem there. She sees something by the side of the road, investigates, and finds an injured baby ostrich, which she picks up because she thinks she's rescuing it. Then the male lead roars up in his truck and accuses her of stealing his escaped baby ostrich. So this was a fun way to have the characters meet each other where there is conflict, they're at odds, they have to overcome this particular conflict in order to move forward in the story. And it just made it a lot more entertaining and fun and dramatic to introduce the characters in the setting with this bit of conflict instead of something quieter like them meeting on the street or being introduced by mutual friends. So that's kind of thing you want to think about in your own writing. And one way to work toward that is to study published books. Look at the openings. Do they get off to a fast start? If so, how so? If not, could anything be cut that would help them get off to a faster start? If they do have a slower start, but you feel like it works, why is that working? So learn from published books in order to gain some insight into how you want to make your books work. This video is a short excerpt from my advanced plotting class. If you want the whole class, including a longer video on fast starts and the other 5 videos on plotting, then you can learn more about that class and sign up for it on my Chris Ebach website, the For Writers tab. And you can also get my book, Advanced Plotting, if you want some more help with your plots. But I hope that gives you a little bit of insight and something you can start with in order to figure out your fast starts.